Hey everybody, and welcome to another Terrainify tutorial. Today I'll be showing you how to paint our modular spires in the Broken Ground theme. The full list of products and materials used can be found in the description below. So let's get started. Step 1 will be to base coat the entire piece in black and let it fully dry. This step has already been completed on this piece, so we can move on to step 2. For step 2, we're going to overbrush the entire piece in a dark brown color. Don't forget that we're using a slightly damp brush when doing the overbrush technique. You're still going to wipe off the excess paint from your brush before you paint. Now with a light hand, use a back and forth motion in your wrist to apply the paint. You should see the paint lay heavier on the raised sections, but not going into the nooks and crannies. If you're laying down too much paint, wipe off your brush again and work the area more to help thin and spread the paint. When you've painted the whole tile, let it dry for a moment. Then we can move on to the next step. Step 3 will be to dry brush our vertical and rocky areas with a tan color, followed by a darker off-white color. Try to avoid the flat areas as best you can. You might need to use a smaller brush to get into any hard-to-reach areas. If you do get paint on the flat areas, it's not a big problem. We'll fix it in the next step. You might need to wait a minute in between colors to let the paint dry. Now for the next step. Step 4, the step that hides all the paint mishaps, as long as it's on the flat areas. Flocking. For this step, we're going to break it up into 2 parts. For the first part, we're going to use white PVA glue around the base of the model using a small flat brush. As a quick tip, lightly wet the brush to keep the glue from soaking into it. Now apply the glue with a brush in a thin layer. Make sure to work it to the very edge of the tile and to the base of the model. Next, we're going to apply the glue in a 1/4-inch strip from the edge of the flat area of our spire inward. Now heavy flock all the wet glue areas. I like to lightly push the flock down to make sure it sticks well. Then turn the piece over and lightly tap the bottom to knock off the excess. You should see a very thick film of flock on all the areas we applied glue. Next, we'll apply a thin sealer onto the flocked areas. Let this completely dry before going to the second part of flocking. Now for part 2. Trust the process here. Apply dry flock to the rest of the flat areas and any wider ledges on our vertical rocky sides. You should not be able to see any of the print beneath the flock on the flat areas. Okay, remember to trust the process here. Using a thick sealer, apply it to our newly flocked areas. They should soak in nicely and look wet. So another quick tip, add a healthy squirt of jet dry or another type of surfactant to your thick sealer when mixing. This helps break up the surface tension so your sealer will soak into the flock better. Step 5 is done while the flock is still wet. Adding coarse flock. So using our white PVA glue, add a glob where you want to have your coarse flock. Larger piles of coarse flock work best with a vertical backing, so up against the spire. Add some smaller piles in the open areas. This will help to break up the openness. Once you're satisfied with the coarse flock, add a bit of thick sealer to each spot. Now set it aside to dry. Okay, last step, grass tufts. We're using 4 and 6 mm grass tufts. Now using the white glue, apply the tufts in small groups of 3 to 5 closer to the spires. I am putting some of the groups next to our piles of coarse flock just to add to them. Use single tufts or just a couple small tufts in the more open areas. Depending on the size of the tuft, you can fit them on some of the wider vertical edges. When you're happy with the look and amount of grass tufts, let it dry. And that's it. This theme is super easy and brings a lot of color to the table. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, comment, and subscribe. Also, check out Terrainify.com for all of our tiles, models, and SEO files. Thanks for watching.